with that. So this is really not a presentation, but I kind of wanted to use you all as a focus group to talk about attention and how it's changing. And I think about attention broadly. I've been in journalism since 1995, when I helped the Globe launch Boston.com in the early Web 1.0 era of what should newspapers be doing online, and what is the web, and what is possible on the web. So I'm very interested in how media commands our attention going forward, whether it's on the web or on Twitter or on mobile apps or with video. But I'm also interested in attention in the corporate context or the university context. So what are ways that leaders and managers and CIOs get their people's attention, get people within the organization who are not officially their people? How do you get attention in 2013? So I kind of want to just throw out a couple things and really as bait for you to react to. So I'm hoping that everyone is going to participate. The worst way to hold people's attention is to create a series of bullets and read the text on the slide aloud as though your audience was illiterate. I just wanted to start by pointing that out. So that's not a good way to get people's attention. But let me show you something else. Thornton mentioned I'm really into the movies. And one of my previous books is called Inventing the Movies, and it's kind of a technological history of the movie industry from the 1890s to the present, looking at how innovation kept that art form, that media business alive.
It's a twister! It's a twister!
So I wanted to show that. I feel like when you turn out the lights and you start up The Wizard of Oz, we could have all sat here for the next 2 hours really watching it and enjoying ourselves. But One of the things I've been thinking about, when you think about the darkened movie theater, or even just, a good home theater at home and turning on a movie, or you think about sitting down with a book, on a beach or on a cruise ship or somewhere just nice and quiet where there's not a lot of interruption, or even just listening to your radio when you get into the car and you have a long drive ahead and turning on the radio and maybe you hear NPR, or a great music station or This American Life or something. It feels like a lot of these old media forms hold our attention a lot better than the new media forms. And I don't know, I'm curious if anyone has deeper observations about what it is. We could probably list some others, theater or dance, going to see a dance performance where, going to see stand-up comedy, kind of a lot of the darkened room forms of communication. But does anyone want to toss out theories about what is it about these older forms? Yeah. Yeah.
When you go to a movie theater, turn your phone off because
or you should, right?
you should, because it's the polite thing to do, so you're not being distracted by that.
Yeah.
So whatever it is, it's the one-dimensional
Yeah.
thing you're paying attention to. In the car, I turn the radio off.
Oh, interesting. Sally? Mm-hmm. So like if the book gets slow, you might check Twitter or, see if anyone sent you any text messages. Yeah. So do you think the younger college student and younger generation don't sit down with a book you don't think there are situations where they sit down with a book and there's no other device or no other communication channel there? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any observation about older things? I mean, obviously the darkened room context, maybe it doesn't work with college students because they sometimes fall asleep, but like that darkened room, focus on one thing in the spotlight is something that, these old art forms or cultural forms, going to see a storyteller or a stand-up comic, it has that nice focus on like we're doing one thing here. You're not talking to other people. You shouldn't be checking your phone or looking something up on Wikipedia. Thornton.
Well, one, you paid for it, that darkened room, so you feel like you should pay attention. Whereas now all the things that's in front of your eyes are free.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Like you go to see Book of Mormon and you pay your $500 a ticket, and like you're going to pay attention. You're going to read every word of the playbill. Yeah, free versus paid. When I think about the new things, I think we're still in this early stage of figuring out like how to make sense of like the jumble of apps that you have on your phone and sort of how they're organized. How do you make an app, whether you're an enterprise or whether you're a consumer company that is going to wind up on someone's first screen as opposed to like the 97th screen of apps that they have. I don't know if that's this slide intentionally left blank, or maybe there's a video that's...
It's working, we're looking at it.
Yeah, oh yeah. Having nothing on a slide. I got your attention. I think the App Store, the App Store is an interesting thing because for me, I'm curious about your experience, but when I go to the App Store, I am always looking for some app that somebody told me about, or I'm brought there from a link on the web. You never go through the App Store like a bookstore or a library. It's just too frustrating of an experience. But does someone else have a different take on that? Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Because of the promise that an app is going to make you happier? Yeah. Yeah, but it's interesting, like, I do think there is this divide between, the chaotic, infinite shelves of the Google App Store or the Apple App Store, where you're relying much more on, maybe it's a review that points you to an app that, is going to improve your productivity or is just a fun game, but maybe it's, more often for me, it's kind of that social recommendation of, like, someone tells me about, a new app for, recently it was scanning business cards. What do you do when someone hands you a business card and how do you solve that problem? So I think we're... Yeah, free. Although I'm for work-related stuff, I'm willing to pay a couple dollars for like my Twitter client. I think I paid $5 or so for a good Twitter client on my phone. So speaking of Twitter, how many of you are like habitual? Like there's always a Twitter window open on your computer. So like 5, 6 people. Thornton told me he's like a periodic Twitter checker. It's like a So you open it as a break from the day or like for a specific.
I'm not an old fart.
Right. The interesting thing for me about Twitter and attention is like one observation I would make, and I'm curious about yours. One observation is that I open up Twitter in the morning before I open up email because people on Twitter are talking about what's going on, but they're not giving me stuff to do, and I really like that. There's very rarely like an assignment, or work that comes through Twitter. Occasionally, like I'll see someone tweeting about a story, and I think, oh, I wish I had written that story. But it's not task-oriented. It's just kind of this like absorbing the ambient information flow of the world. And the other thing I'd observe is that, it's so all media and all stuff that gets our attention in a way like it has to mention you or it has to involve you in some way. So like that middle column of who are people that are mentioning either stuff that I wrote or trying to mention my name to get my attention, that column and the column on the right, which is people sending direct messages to me, there's a lot of juice and kind of mojo to those columns, whereas the first one, which is just people I follow saying stuff, maybe I pay less attention, to that flow. But any other observations about kind of how you're using Twitter or what gets your attention on Twitter or why you don't like Twitter? Yeah.
And very infrequently can you achieve anything on 140 characters.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, I'm sorry. You can be sued for 140 characters. I'm sorry. You can accomplish a lot. You can put your entire personal fortune at risk for 140 characters. Now, you have a whole lot of people that
Yeah.
There are people who I want to see every day.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people who speak an awful lot about stuff I care about, and also speak an awful lot about stories like that. Get resonates with more clear.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are so what I find is that the minute you actually start responding to people, who never think you have like you do it Twitter, they're absolutely
Mm-hmm. Just going to tweet each other? Yeah.
Or when we talk, we reverse ourselves. So it's a really fun.
Go ahead, Sally.
It's a funny thing, I think particularly for people of my age, I'm 51, and I've heard people say, the grown-ups are learning this stuff. You're learning Twitter, you're learning Facebook, because they think we're learning sometimes, whether it's colleges, persons, professional women out there, whether it's one of them here or one of them tweets in my own. But when I started using it, I really got serious about making my life personal myself, more serious. And it was a funny thing because I was like, oh, what am I going to do? Am I professional? Is it a personal thing? And I was like, it can't be personal because none of my friends are doing it. So it became for me a personal way, and it's great comment about the list because I thought it was 15 years ago, I was career advice, job options, and you know, choosing here was about it. I know everybody's technology is really cool, yet not that many of our kids here are on it because of it. So it's just, and then the young kids, my 16-year-old now talking about Line and this whole new wave of social media that one of my alumni was talking to, who's really into this stuff, said, I don't even use these things, I don't even use them.
Mm-hmm. Everyone's using Snapchat now.
He's an old man of 25.
Uh-huh.
He doesn't know, right, Snapchat, that was the other one he got.
Yeah.
So it's just,
Are you familiar with Snapchat? So the idea of like you're shooting a little video of yourself, but it only lives for a few seconds. You can, I forget what the default is, but I think you can designate how long is this video going to be around, and then it just disappears, which is interesting to think about, like a corporate communication version of Snapchat. Like if you don't read this memo in the next 10 minutes, it will self-destruct, and you're going to be completely out of the know. It's funny, but you know there might be something there, right? You know, if you sort of tried to engineer your organization, you know, a la Snapchat, you know, hey, there's an incentive to, you know, to have this piece of information, and I don't want you to put it off for 3 months before you read our new policy about.
Your ticker symbol will be ADD.
Right. But I do think it points up, you know, it points up the challenge of like that, the way social media is so urgent and is so much, you know, like what's interesting about Twitter is what someone is just posting now, not so much what people posted 3 months ago. Like it just doesn't have the same vibrancy. Right, and I do feel like in organizations there's so many, you know, having done some corporate communications consulting, there's so much headache around like how do you get people to read a new policy or go through online training or like do something that the organization wants them to do when like their incentive is to, or their instinct is to put it off as long as possible. You know what I mean? Until like the deadline is like, if you have not done this training, we are going to fire you, you know, by June 30th.
The value I find is people who send me things that I ought to know.
Yeah.
I don't really care if they're going along for what they're doing, you know, looking at poison. But the people will say, did you see this article?
Yeah.
You know, where, you know, Red Sox suck, you know,
Right.
my Yankees fan. And but those are the things that really I love because it dramatically expands what you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or ignore.
That's a good way of putting it. You know, Facebook apps, I was looking at, you know, there was a lot more excitement around Facebook apps, and it seems like it kind of has turned into, you know, games and entertainment and not much in the way of information and productivity. But it was interesting that Code Academy, this is the list of trending Twitter apps or Facebook apps right now, and Code Academy is number 2. People learning to code with a Facebook app. And number 3 is music related, and the other ones are all games. But I think Facebook is one of these places where, and this is true of the iTunes Store too, like I think you got a lot of attention if you were there in the first year that there were Facebook apps that you could plug into your page, or that there, you know, the first year that there was an iPhone and there was an app store. And now it's just very hard to, you know, to kind of rise to the top of these universes.
Evolution of dance.
You will get up tomorrow.
your hand if you've seen this video before. Yeah, and this is 100 million views. It's probably closer to 200 million now. It was kind of the first real viral hit on YouTube around maybe late 2005, early 2006, kind of in the Pleistocene era of YouTube. And the thing that I thought, I mean, what's your observation about? I mean, it's just kind of funny, right? It's this goofy guy doing a dance routine. But like, what else would you observe about why this captures your attention and is like why it might have been the first YouTube video to surpass 100 million views? Yeah, mindless. Yeah, you remember those songs? Yeah, that's a great point. It's just a regular person. It starts with Elvis. The production values are like nothing, right? The guy, I interviewed Judson Lapely, who made this video, and he set up, it's kind of like this video camera. He set up that video camera in the back of an auditorium when he was doing a show. He's a motivational speaker who goes around to college campuses, and this is part of his routine. I'm not sure why, but no cameraman, just a DV video camera. And, one of the things about, they were talking a little bit about in the panel of like, producing video. Well, maybe the more money you spend, the less it captures people's attention in some way, unless you're a Hollywood studio and you can spend $100 million, to make Transformers 7, with fantastic special effects. But, this is basically a production budget of zero. No cuts at all. Like, it just has this real like authenticity. Maybe it gets back to what we were talking about at the beginning of like, it's just one performer in the spotlight. You're not being distracted by all of the cuts and all of the special effects, and nothing happens other than the sort of mindlessness and humor of the performance. Yeah. 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 The other thing that it's worth noting about YouTube is that it was also the early days of like rating and commenting on videos. I mean, there were ratings and comments on the web before this, but the idea that if you think about watching network television, watching Seinfeld or going to the movies, there wasn't that kind of interaction where it expected you to comment and say like what your favorite song was in his medley, or did you like it or did you not like it. And that kind of engagement is really interesting. I think that, there's this other thing that started happening with YouTube where people would make video responses to videos. And sometimes it was just them sitting in front of their webcam talking about what they liked or didn't like. And sometimes it was them doing like a dance parody of this, of saying like, oh, I'm going to do my favorite songs. And you'd have like a teenage girl in her bedroom doing her 5, favorite songs and dance moves. So like turning media into a conversation is kind of an interesting way that YouTube, I think, started to capture people's attention. I'll show another video on YouTube that kind of shows the direction it's been going more recently, and I'm curious how many of you will have seen this one.
I'm Mike.
Steve, nice to meet you, Mike. I saw you sort of gravitated towards the Camaro. You thinking about getting one?
Oh, no. This way too much car for me.
Well, it's a lot of power, but they've designed it to be very safe.
I don't know if I can handle it. I've never driven anything like this before.
Well, I tell you what, I think a way to really make you feel comfortable would be to put you behind the wheel.
You're good.
What are you driving now?
Oh, just a minivan.
Oh, yeah.
What am I signing here? You sure?
It's just a checkout sheet for a test drive. You're not obligated to anything. It's just so we know who's out. Let's go give it a drive.
I'm getting a little nervous.
No, I'll be right there beside you. There are your keys, sir.
Thank you, Steve.
But you'll have to unlock it, Mike.
Oh,
yeah.
Thank you.
There we go.
Oh, yeah. What a car. Mm-hmm. Well, we better buckle up.
Yeah, good call. Yeah. Power door locks. Standard, of course.
You are liable for any damages to the vehicle, so please stop the car, or at least slow down. Slow down. Slow down. You can't go through that gate, Mike. Stop! 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 you're gonna wreck this car. You're liable for it if you wreck it. Mike, stop the car! Stop the car right now! Get up here! Yeah, no, oh my God! Just take us back. Oh no, I'm gonna die.
You all right over there, Steve?
Oh, you're an idiot. I'm gonna kill you. Oh, stop. Oh, God almighty. Oh, damn.
Woo! Yeah!
Who the f*** do you think you are?
What do you mean?
I'm calling the cops.
No, you don't understand. It's not what you think. It's not what you think. No, it's just a prank. We're just having fun. Look, this is a camera. Here's a camera. There's cameras. Look, it was all just fun. Look, I'm Jeff Gordon. Sorry, man. Sorry.
Wanna do it again?
Yeah, let's do it again.
So this video, can you raise your hand if you've seen this one already? A couple people have seen it. 33 million views, and it's much newer than Evolution of Dance. But what would you observe about what's going on there that like this was kind of one of the more recent viral successes on YouTube? Yeah, paid for it. There's a corporate motivation behind it, and I think when you first start watching it, you can't tell who it's an ad for. Like, is it an ad for Chevy and Camaro, or is it a Pepsi ad, or is it promoting some event, or who knows what? But you kind of had the sense from the beginning that like there was some agenda behind it, maybe that it wasn't like really a prank video. But what else over here? Yeah.
He's a librarian.
Yeah. Yeah, it plays into that. Yeah. Yeah. But, yeah, right. The car salesman is kind of the rube or the villain in this video. I mean, the thing that's interesting is, so now, you know, in 2013, you can have a big company. I mean, I think this could be any organization. You know, you've seen organizations try to sort of capture the magic of viral video. There was like an MIT Gangnam Style parody that got a lot of views. And I think it can work. Like, it's interesting, you know, this doesn't have the same authenticity. It's obviously higher production values and multiple cameras than the Judson Lapely, but it sort of works because, you know, you're trying to figure out what's going on in it. You know it's not authentic, but it's making you work to understand like what the motivation is behind it. Yeah. Right. No.
Ones that win awards for social media these days, they rarely actually touch on the product itself.
Yeah.
It's certainly not supposed to be at. If you're doing like a little Phil Collins song,
Uh-huh.
in the air tonight or something like that.
Yeah.
And then at the very end, you see the Cadbury product, and it's not even featured in the ad at all. It's
Yeah.
like 5 minutes of drumming in the air tonight.
Yeah, but it's an interesting observation. So like if you're subtler about your message, right? If you don't beat people over the head with the like infomercial, you know, let me tell you about the Ronco Popil Pocket Fisherman, and you know, if you're subtle about it, you can get people to watch it longer. Like this is a Pepsi ad that's 3 minutes long. I didn't even show you the first minute of it, you know, where you kind of see the setup and he's getting made up with the beard so he doesn't look like Jeff Gordon. Like to get 33 million people to watch a 3 minute long Pepsi ad that they paid zero. I'm not sure what parts of that have been aired as a ad on broadcast TV, but like that's tremendous reach for your message when you're like A, not beating people over the head with it, and B, doing something entertaining. Yeah. 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 Mhm.
Those are very cool too, because those are, they're real. I guess they're real, but they're not real. But it's real with all the people that are watching the faces of the people that are watching the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Flash mobs tend to be, I love the flash mob, because I wish I was there in the flash mob, but if I can't be there in the flash mob,
Yeah. Yeah, I think, those are interesting points. Like flash mobs is just this weird phenomenon that didn't really exist before the internet existed to share them. But this video, the thing that's cool about it to me is that like it points to the really like evergreen, sort of the evergreen magic of storytelling, right? Because it sort of has a beginning, a middle, and an end. He shows up at the car dealership, he goes for the ride, and it's crazy, and then it has this sort of conclusion at the end where he takes off his beard. And, narrative is such a powerful way to get people to pay attention. First this happened, then this happened, then this happened. It's the same thing from The Wizard of Oz of like, okay, so there's a tornado and Dorothy's family gets into the shelter and Dorothy can't get in, and you kind of want to know what happens next. And I think there's obviously a lot of novels and New Yorker fiction written that has that kind of narrative drive, but it's very hard to do corporate messaging that has that same kind of suspense or fun to it, really.
Most of the books that I see people reading, are books about horrible things that happen to people in terrible families and, dysfunctional this. And most of the stuff you see on the internet is sort of joking.
Yeah.
Any comment on that? I mean, it's weird when people will buy a book about horrible stuff.
Yeah.
And then, when you go on the internet, you're always looking for truth.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have a thought about that. But it is a good point. Like, why are there so many books about, the zombie apocalypse right now and vampires taking over?
With anybody getting pretending that there's a business value to all of this, is that Pepsi thing? Right?
Mhm.
Look how long they stayed. They watched them. There was 33 million hits. Everything. How much Pepsi did they sell?
And the point is that they don't have those metrics to work with on that. They have the overall count of the revenue from here. You can't serve them unless they have again the website to go to something like that to learn more.
Right. Print out your coupon for your 10 cents off your next 2-liter bottle. But I think cola is one of those weird categories where they've been advertising since cola was invented, and it's hard to show the impact of like, well, what did this year's Super Bowl ad do for us?
No, I'm asking those basic questions.
Yeah.
In a world of big data, you can actually feel like maybe we shouldn't be doing this type of stuff. Right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's funny. I think that in the world of like corporate viral video, there is still that detachment. In the same way that TV advertising has a detachment from figuring out what is the real impact. So it is kind of more about brand building and and cool, like giving Pepsi Max a cool factor that maybe they don't care about measuring. Or they measure with surveys and with.
I don't know if they would care about measuring because Pepsi Max, in and of itself, is a new Pepsi product.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to take a look at what is it doing, how much of the actual Pepsi Max are they selling. Take a look at Pepsi as a whole. Pepsi's got probably a dual purpose with the ad. One part of the ad is keeping Pepsi, the company, top of mind, and that's where it's a cool Jack Gordon commercial. It was done by Pepsi and so on and so forth. So you remember Pepsi. The product placement of the Pepsi Max, that's a brand new product that they're trying to sell, and you'll certainly be able to go from zero to some other number.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's based upon that.
Yeah, that's a good point. You recognize from the typeface where this sign is, right? Dunkin' Donuts. And I saw this on a door. This is just sort of a little palate cleanser. I saw this on a door, and I thought it was so interesting because, like, you've commanded my attention. I'm walking in to get my coffee, and you paid one of your employees to put this sign up on the door of every Dunkin' Donuts, and there's no message to it at all. So it just struck me as like, wow, what a crazy, like how much money went into putting these signs up to tell me nothing. Like nothing about the product, not even a picture. It's this crazy contentless. Right, it's like under construction sign. What is the new product? Yeah, maybe that was their intention. And probably the employees would not have known. They were just like, well, so they told us to put up this sign this month. No, but yeah, I stopped and took a picture and tweeted something like, this is the worst marketing I've ever seen. Right. Right. Uh-huh. Yeah.
The mountain is kind of everybody said, what's the mountain, what's the mountain? And then I remember when the product finally came, it became number one in the market almost overnight.
Yeah.
And so there could be that's something.
But I would say that's a teaser with like some content that gives you something to talk about. No one goes back to their office and is like, hey, did you hear about the new product coming soon? You know, like there's just, it doesn't, it's, there's no
There are a lot of people who live off the Dunkin' Donuts, and it's a whole social experience.
Yeah.
That is silly, you know. It's interesting from the point that Dunkin' Donuts is the market leader, and trying to figure out why they would say something like that. When they already have millions and millions and millions of people coming into their restaurants every day, coffee shops every day to get their coffee, you would think that that would be coming from somebody who's trying to drive some more traffic into their location instead of from the market leader.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point too.
But it's also the branding on the site. Like you said, we all know what's branding.
Well, yeah, because they own that font and that color scheme. Yeah. And and I remember, right. Yeah. 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 There's an interesting, just as an adjacent point to Starbucks, there's a site called like, gosh, I'm going to forget the name of like Caffeine Creativity or Caffeine-tivity or something, where it's a site that all it does is it turns on the ambient noise of a coffee shop, so that if you're a work-at-home person and you feel like that contributes to your productivity, you can hear people like having conversations and the steamed milk machine in the background, but you don't have to spend the $5 to buy the coffee.
The insects are going to win.
I want to skip to just a... I'm not going to remember it in particular, but I learned it on Twitter. How about email? I guess I wanted to ask about sort of email that gets your attention, whether it's, you know, obviously there are certain people in our lives that send us email and, you know, it commands attention, but like, are there types of emails, maybe it's like emails that you subscribe to that give you discounts or deals, or, you know, maybe they are vendor emails of some sort that have interesting articles, but like, in this world of the inbox, like what do you think commands attention? It's probably not messages marked like triple urgent, you know.
White paper on cloud.
Yeah, that subject. Right. Right.
Oh, geez, can't get enough of those guys.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Let's go. Yeah. How about in the professional realm is kind of what I'm more interested in, you know, because...
Yeah, because there's so much clutter in personal. I have a number of social media contacts. One person is not seeing it. Professionally, anything that includes your name, comma, or, you know, so to show that you're direct and you can action on something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you're waiting for one of these emails, it helps when there's actually something that's called out, you know, so-and-so, quick request, or so-and-so, need your help, or whatever. And then you go, oh, this I'm not just CC'd on this, actually.
Right. How about stuff that is publications, like whether it's, Groupon telling you about the deal of the day, or it's, a consulting firm that has just an interesting email newsletter? Like, is there anything that you would say, this is something that I read or print out that comes into my inbox? There might be some deal in there. Yeah. Yeah, so there's nothing like, I feel like every company has an email newsletter now, but none of you are reading them, apparently. Why do you think people are making all these email newsletters if no one's reading them? Like, I thought this was a valid form of communication, when they have like the pretty pictures, they're like embedded graphics and subheads. Yeah. Uh-huh. 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 Mm-hmm. So far we have like Groupon being the only, or maybe she's the only person willing to admit to reading, sort of sale-related, commerce-related, but there's nothing else. JetBlue, like their vacation, deals. Anything else? Uh-huh. And do you print it out, or you just kind of read it on the screen? Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. But so is it not a behavior that exists in terms of getting an email that's not like your boss or a colleague saying, I need your comments on this draft document? Obviously, you might print that out, but there's no email that's going to come from a McKinsey or an HBR or a consulting firm that you're going to say, yes, I'm going to print out this 10-page report on X. Okay. Uh-huh. Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing, right? If you're on the airplane, you pay more attention to your email. Joanne? Mm-hmm. Cool. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, particularly with Amazon, when like you may have bought something for somebody else, and then they suddenly start recommending products, and it's like, wait, that was a gift. I don't, you know.
No, that's not, you got a great picture of doing that, right? Because they analyze this target, you know.
Right. Right. You'll retarget me. Someone will spend $10 now retargeting me for ads. Which one? Ace Hardware. Yeah. 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 I just wanted to toss up a couple last examples. iPad-specific magazines seems to be this new category of like we're going to create a magazine as an app. To me, this feels like, you know, why wouldn't you just do it as a website? You know, to have to wait, you know, as we were talking about before with the App Store, you know, to have to wait until someone thinks or remembers that your app exists there on their iPad and is going to open it. This to me feels like a tough way to get people's attention, just because so much iPad time is spent, at least in my life, surfing the web as opposed to using specific apps, unless they're games. Yeah.
We talk about this personalization, but we're always talking about them knowing us, sort of, you know, 1984. But wouldn't it be interesting if that you could, maybe when you start your day, I know that maybe you're on these multi-factors, but then there's like type in, this is me today.
Mm-hmm.
These are my 5 projects. This is this and that. I don't want guessing. I don't want you to have to do this and that. If you can make the bell ring on those 7 buckets, I love you to pieces. You know?
Yeah.
You know, because you self-announce. This is the stuff that's going on me today.
Yeah.
Right? You know, and if you can help me out, help me out. You know, sort of like it's sort of like incentive for basically just getting my little bow tie lights to the end of the day.
Right. Right. And it's funny, you know, there were some media experiments in the early days of the web about like, okay, we're going to personalize your news. You're going to tell us 10 topics that you care about, and we seem to have moved away from that into this like on, you know, just in time, like I'm going to punch into Google whatever those topics are, and you probably get suboptimal results.
This whole idea, I like the personalization, but actually really personalized, and we do the personalization, or like or just put it like out, you know, like when you do your email, like you're like I'm on vacation or something like that. Today, I know what I'm doing. Leave
Right.
me alone.
Right.
There is a firm that does that, so outside IT, they say, what we do is set specifically for industry, one industry at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in the insurance industry or search industry, and you put sort of what you're working on, and it's gorgeous the way it puts it all together in the format you the template uses on.
Yeah, I want to check that out.
Oh, it's fine, but real slow outside IT.
2 last things I wanted to show. Quora. Is anyone using Quora yet? It's really an interesting, you know, kind of social Q&A site where, you know, you can be an asker, you can be an answerer, you can be both. It sort of has this model of people that are already in your social network. What questions are they answering or asking? And it's interesting to think about how would this work in the corporate context? You know, it's, I mean, this is really kind of a knowledge management tool, but it's so loose and, you know, so loose and kind of well designed and just functional that you don't feel like they're forcing you through a lot of like the hoops that knowledge management used to force you through. You know, the search knows if people have asked similar questions, so you don't have people asking the same question over and over. It's really worth a look if you haven't. Mm-hmm. Well, Quora is very well search engine optimized so that you often wind up on Quora pages when you're Googling these topics. They did a really nice job kind of helping this. Yeah, yeah. And also that you have, you know, you have like people with interesting credentials answering questions. It's not the sort of Yahoo Answers, you know, random person answering a question. It's often like someone's asking a question about like, how do I get my screenplay bought for $1 million? And you'll have, you know, the screenwriter of, you know, Indiana Jones who happens to answer the question and says, well, here's how I did it. So it has some nice, you know, it has great community participation. I guess I want to skip LinkedIn other than, unless anyone has any observations, other than, I'm fascinated by like watching LinkedIn to see when people change jobs. I care about almost nothing else, but like those updates about when are people moving from place to place kind of commands my attention. No, and there are some people who change their description almost every week,
It'd be nice if you could ask questions to them too, and we stop you.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, it feels like LinkedIn is playing this weird game where like they're adding so many features to try to keep up with what they perceive as like the need for new features, and it actually detracts from what most people use LinkedIn for. Yeah.
One note on that, the feature that they added for endorsing seems like a really silly sort of goofy thing to do, but it's actually interesting for them because it's there to really lightweight social change and validation without having to send that to someone. It'll pull up 6 people who I haven't contacted and I'm like, yeah, I'll endorse them for what they do for a living. And so, it's sort of like a Facebook post.
Yeah.
Without doing that, and yet it gives them a really rich data set that they can then connect all these people.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, is that there's so much stuff in this new world of social media where it's like, all we want you to do is click this button. You don't have to write a sentence. Like, I don't have to write a one-sentence recommendation of Joanne anymore. I can just endorse her for a skill. And that kind of like lightweight, easy engagement, there's so much that we have in our work lives that is not easy that stuff winds up being really appealing. Right.
I endorsed by 5 people. I have no idea who they are.
Yeah.
And they said, this guy's good. I have no idea who they are.
Yeah. There are people you've impressed over the last day.
So if I got an endorsement from somebody at Kirsner, how do you know?
Yeah.
I got endorsed last week something about Salesforce.com, and I've never used it.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the new learning. Why bother learning it? Just get endorsed for it. And I want to skip just talking about blogs because I know we're running short on time, and just kind of show you a video of something new and interesting.
Hey, I'm David Granger, Editor-in-Chief of Esquire Magazine. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this new thing we did called Talk to Esquire, which is a brand new app for your iPad or iPhone that we developed with this cool new startup company called Volio. Talk to Esquire uses speech recognition technology to give our readers, that would be you, personalized interactive video experiences with a few of the experts who write for our magazine every month. Say you're looking to try a new cocktail. You download the app for free and then tap on Dave Wandrich.
Hi, I'm David Wandrich, drinks columnist for Esquire Magazine.
Hi, Dave.
Let's start off by getting to know a little bit about what you like to drink. What's your favorite type of liquor? Vodka, whiskey, rum, something else?
Dave, you know me. I'll drink just about anything, but let's go with vodka.
Ha, not too picky, I see. Since you're basically giving me free range here,
Wait, no, let's go back. I've changed my mind.
what's your favorite type of liquor?
Dave, I'm going to go with whiskey.
Nice choice. A lot of whiskey drinkers are pretty, let's say, firm in their ways. Are you open to trying new drinks, or would you rather keep it classic?
Dave, you know me. I'm always up for something new.
Good to hear. I'd like to mix you a classic cocktail with my own little twist. You've had an old-fashioned before, haven't you?
Love the old-fashioned.
You could go for a Sazerac, which is a New Orleans classic that's really strong and tasty. Or you can try an old-fashioned made with spirits other than whiskey.
I've had your Sazerac, Dave, so why don't we try the old-fashioned?
Lately, bartenders have been proving how flexible the old-fashioned formula is. You might want to try it with, say, Dutch Geneva, a kind of whiskyish gin, or dark rum, or even mezcal if you want to get Mexican on it.
I'm feeling Mexican, Dave. Let's go with mezcal.
So,
Okay, so without watching the whole video there, that's an app that skip ahead here. That's an app that just came out from this new company called Volio. The founder is Ron Crane, who used to run Nuance, which was kind of the original, one of the original phone-based speech recognition. You would call Amtrak to book a trip. And it's interesting in that it kind of brings together, the YouTube, like someone looking into the camera, almost a Skype experience, except it's Skype plus, plus some AI to understand the questions, plus some speech recognition. I'm curious if anyone has a take, like, there is always this artificiality when you're talking to someone that is not really live, even if it is video of a person as opposed to some kind of animated avatar. But I'm curious if you think that that sort of thing could work, as a sort of Q&A approach for, learning how to make drinks or like you're learning how to use some piece of software or some system.
Well, I think what Khan did with the short conversational videos that are human and relatable is really just like version 0.2 of something that I think this represents something closer to a 1.0 of. I could see a lot of loose content being, if you presume the tools are there, the video is mapped out. This is my concept map. Okay, great. If this is your concept map, what are the questions you want people to go through, and how are they being assessed along the way, and then you can somehow easily make that, because I imagine that was expensive, difficult to map out and find out. If 3 years from now someone finds a way of making the creation and operating process for that kind of quick video easy, you could see lots of online courses be delivered, or some sort of online experience, but not full courses, delivered that way. So I do think
I definitely wondered whether it needed to be a Skype experience versus if you're going to let me direct my path through this content, like why couldn't it just be an on-screen little pop-up that says, whatever, do you want to understand more about how to crush mint into this drink? Do you want to see what the best tool is for crushing mint or whatever?
It lacks personalization. Yes, the guy was talking, telling them how to make a drink and all that stuff, but there was no actual personalization of it. It was never the other guy's name was mentioned or anything of that sort. It was, you could tell they were canned response.
Yeah.
And the speed at which they came up with the canned response needs to be worked on a little bit, but it was still the canned response.
Yeah, right. And you're sort of like, so you're videoing a real human, but you're kind of asking them to act like an audio animatronic, in,
He's got a million lines of script to read,
right.
And now how quickly can we go find it, but he's never really talking to the person.
Yeah.
Talking at the person.
Disney does bargaining.
Yeah. Yeah. So, this is just something I've been thinking a lot about, obviously, this idea of attention. And to wrap up, I'm curious if there's just anything else. These are just some examples that I was picking when Thorne asked me to come talk with you. But is there anything else that you would say, like, jumps out at you as, like, this is something, this is a channel, this is a piece of software, this is a way of reaching people that really works in your organization that isn't something we've touched on?
Well, it was funny. Last night, basically, we had this, we had Dave Weinberger, and basically talked about it's like authority has changed and all that. I think filters still matter. I think a journalistic voice still matters. And I mean, for example, somebody who's actually connected with somebody, that will actually give you a step up. It'll make your searches better. So I think that gets attention. Somebody who actually has a point of view that and somehow have come to respect when your experience said. Actually, those are emails you would, like Bruce, has been around. You would listen to the tribal elders.
Yeah.
Just for their point of view.
Yeah. Other observations? Because this would actually be useful to me if there's something that we haven't touched on that's like just a phenomenal new way to get. I mean, for me, one of the new modes of attention is like the Twitter direct message, that pops up on your phone, and it's someone saying like, hey, I just sent you a press release. This news is about to go over the wire in 5 minutes. Just wanted to make sure you saw it, or something that has that kind of, the Twitter DM is like more urgent than email and kind of almost as attention getting as a phone call, maybe slightly less than someone just calling my cell phone. Twit polls? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anything else, Joanne? Yeah, that's interesting. Like, it is funny how when you go to college campuses, like bulletin boards have survived. That idea of like, what is the latest thing that's been stapled to the bulletin board?
Well, places where you're held hostage, right? Elevators, right? Yeah. You know? Or the thing that's amazing now is basically in the job, right? You know, but they're actually delivering a tailored message here. Right? You know, this journal brought to you by HP. You know, I mean.
Well, the better one is Google, where they have. You go to the bathroom at Google, and they have sheets. I don't know how this works in the stalls. I'm only aware of the other. They have sheets that are all about, here are some new software debugging practices for Google. And so it's really, it's like we're conveying information in that 1 minute that we have your attention. Yeah. Yeah, there's one in Cambridge that I don't know if it's active now, but... Yeah. Yeah. Well, Joanne, thanks for bringing us back to like the old-fashioned modes of communication being powerful. This is all my contact information. If you want to either follow me on Twitter, email me about anything. My blog is boston.com/innovation, which I update way too often. But thank you. This is the first time, whenever Thornton invites me to speak somewhere, he's heard all of my old canned talks, so I have to do something new. So that's kind of what this was an experiment in. But hearing from you guys was really useful, and I'm hoping to grab Thornton's recording of all the audience input. So thanks very much for inviting me.